This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Thanks for checking in. It's a hold on to your hat sort of Thursday out there. Winds could gust to 55 miles per hour this afternoon, downwind of Lakes Erie and Ontario. Utility crews bracing for some widespread power outages. Kevin Williams has weather where you live coming up. President Trump has signed a deal to wind down the war with Iran. He did so yesterday at the Palace of Versailles in France before departing the G7 summit. Iran has also signed that proverbial dotted line. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer not a fan of the deal.
This will be regarded as one of the biggest American disasters, and it's because Trump started this war. He didn't know how to finish it, and it looks like in too many ways he has just capitulated to the Iranians.
Even some Republicans are slamming the so-called Memorandum of Understanding. Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy says Ronald Reagan is rolling over in his grave. Texas conservative Ted Cruz also concerned with the deal. Former Trump ambassador Nikki Haley thinks Iran will use newfound funds to further their terrorist activity. President Trump says no U.S. dollars will go to the Islamic Republic of Iran.
It's not our money, it's their money, and we froze it. At a certain point in time, I guess we're going to have to give it back.
The 14-point peace deal starts the clock on 2 months of talks toward ensuring Iran never develops a nuclear weapon.
If it doesn't get done in 60 days, that's all right. We go back to bombing. I don't want to do that because it's so good. But we might have to.
Former Naval Intelligence Officer Jack Posobiec.
What's so great about this historic deal is that the president is doing so from a position of strength. Remember, Barack Obama put his deal in from a position of weakness. He didn't use military power. President Trump was smart to use that, and now he's turning it back on the Iranians, saying, if you agree to do all of these things, then perhaps you can get the carrot. But it's a stick first and then the carrot. And that's why this deal is the best Iran deal that we've seen in our lifetime.
The deal reopens the Strait of Hormuz, lifts sanctions on Iranian oil exports, and provides a reported $300 billion in a reconstruction fund that will be paid for by Iran's Arab neighbors. The alleged ringleader in Sunday's terror plot at the White House during that UFC event is an illegal immigrant. Police say Abraham Alvarez used the name Shepherd while orchestrating this attack, this plot, I should say. It involved flying bomb-rigged drones into buildings and then shooting people as they fled. Thankfully, it never got off the ground. Alvarez came to this country as a child during the Obama administration and received deportation relief through the federal DACA program. War Secretary Pete Hegseth says the Pentagon will be conducting a review of U.S. forces stationed in Europe. He says NATO needs to take more of a lead in defending their own borders.
We're doubling down on our effort to make NATO what it always was supposed to be, a balanced alliance with Europe in the lead for its own defense. NATO 3.0.
Hegseth is not happy that many of our NATO allies did not grant us permission to use their military bases during the war with Iran. It's been a wild spring in tornado-wrecked Illinois. More twisters touching down last night in the land of Lincoln. Reporter Hannah Battah.
Widespread damage devastating the village of Blue Mound.
We thought the house was caving in on us. Yeah, it was scary.
Massive trees crashing down on homes and cars, pieces of wood impaling homes, power lines destroyed, debris scattered everywhere.
No state's seen more tornadic activity this year than Illinois. 190 twisters have touched down there in 2026. That is triple the average number for this time of year. Arthur has been downgraded to a tropical depression, but is still packing a powerful punch along the U.S. Gulf Coast. The first named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season, dumping buckets of rain on Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Up to 20 inches of rain could fall in the hardest hit areas. Georgia Republicans have backtracked on redistricting. State Representative John Burns.
House Republicans will not be taking up congressional or legislative redistricting maps for the 2028 election cycle during this special session.
Burns says there wasn't enough time to get the maps drawn in time for the 2028 presidential election. Georgia Senate Democratic leader Harold Jones thinks the GOP was afraid of backlash from the voters.
People stood up, and I think they saw that, and they actually backed down.
At least 10 states have redrawn their congressional maps following an April 29th decision by the U.S. Supreme Court that made race-based gerrymandering illegal. Expressing pride in this country's become something of a political issue. Unfortunately, only 27% of Democrats plan to display the American flag this 4th of July. 64% of Republicans plan to. Media critic Joe Concha says this is symptomatic of a larger problem.
We're truly a tale of two countries, with more and more major cities embracing the far left and socialism, while the rest of the country remains true to the American dream. But yeah, it truly is two Americas right now.
1 in 4 Democrats say they will not celebrate Independence Day at all this year. 92% of Republicans will. A recent NBC News poll shows just 51% of Americans overall are proud to be an American. That's down from 82% in 2013. Researchers are finding yet another unexpected side effect of some popular weight loss drugs. Rory O'Neill reports.
People using popular weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy tend to show less violent behavior. A new study out of Rutgers University finds that people who take GLP-1 medications are less prone to impulsive behaviors and violence. One factor could be the reduction in alcohol consumption, often seen among users of GLP-1 medications. I'm Rory O'Neill.
Still to come on the Noon Report for Thursday, downtown Jamestown, EC's new president, and wow, what a crowd in Lower Manhattan.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. A vigorous disturbance bringing changeable weather across our region today with sun, thunderstorms, and wind. Things will settle down, though, heading toward the weekend. We'll have forecast details up in 10.
All right, Kevin, looking forward to that. Thank you very much. The NBA champion New York Knicks were treated today to a ticker tape parade through the Canyon of Heroes in Lower Manhattan. It was one of the largest crowds ever assembled in the Big Apple. Governor Hochul directed 15 landmarks across the state, including the Empire State Building, the State Fairgrounds, and Niagara Falls, be lit up tonight in the Knicks colors of orange and blue. New York won the NBA Finals by defeating San Antonio in 5 games. This is their first title since 1973. Jamestown Mayor Kim Eklund is singing the praises of $10 million that her city's just won from the state of New York. Eklund telling Spectrum News the money will help develop the riverfront in Jamestown and revitalize rundown buildings in the downtown area.
We need that little support. We need that little extra boost. Kind of seals the deal for some things that we have probably been pushing off, trying to find some funding on. All it's going to take is one of these projects, to kick in along with the other things we're doing here to turn this city around.
Since 2016, New York State has awarded over $1 billion to almost 100 communities through its downtown revitalization initiative. 2 women are accused of running a brothel in Lycoming County, Pennsylvania. They were taken into custody after an undercover agent visited a spa in Loyalsock. This is the 3rd spa in just 2 months to be shut down in Lycoming County over allegations of prostitution. Elmira College has a new president. Dr. John Dolan is the 16th president of that private liberal arts school in New York City. Southern Tier. He takes over July 1st.
It happened over about an 8-week period to get to yes. There was over 90 applications for this position. So to end up being the candidate and to follow Chuck Lindsay and the work he's done, it's a dream come true.
Dr. Nolan will take the reins from Dr. Chuck Lindsay, who's stepping down after 9 years at EEC. Lindsay telling 18 News the one bit of advice he'd give his successor.
Listen to people. I practice something called management by walking around. And I'll just stop anyone at random and, hey, how's it going? What's going on? What do you think things look like from your point of view? And you'd be amazed at how many things you can learn.
Dr. Dolan's coming to Elmira from the Boston area, where he and his wife had headed up a Catholic high school. The New York DEC is changing deer hunting regulations in an effort to reduce the state's growing deer population. Game officials are expanding opportunities for hunters to harvest antlerless deer. Experts say the growing deer population leads to more automobile accidents, property damage, and tick-borne illnesses. A mid-state school district facing a lawsuit after hundreds of AI-generated deepfakes of girls were created by 2 former male students. The parents of 13 of the girls affected by the scandal are suing the Lancaster Country Day School. Attorney Nadeem Bazar telling ABC 27 this district knew about the deepfakes years ago, but did nothing to stop it.
It's been a long road, a painful road, a dehumanizing road. These women have to live with knowing that these images of their own personal naked bodies are disseminated out into the universe.
The 2 juvenile male students involved in the deepfakes are also named in the lawsuit, as are their parents and the AI companies behind this technology. Police say those male students created 350 images, digitally turning female classmates' faces to appear in inappropriate images. A body camera bill is under consideration in the Pennsylvania legislature. Here's Family Life's Mark Webster.
Yeah, House Bill 2299 passed by an overwhelming margin yesterday. Only a handful of Democrats voting against a measure that would allow county-level probation officers to wear body cameras. Erie Rep. Ryan Bizzarro backed the bill, which would amend the Pennsylvania Wiretap Act to allow the cameras, a move he says would increase transparency in the wake of the fatal shooting of 43-year-old Marcello Woodard by a state parole agent who wasn't wearing a body cam. The bill now heads to the state Senate. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Thank you, Mark. A Gates, New York woman is in legal hot water after being accused of abusing 5 children at an unlicensed daycare. Authorities say 31-year-old Casey Rates was running that daycare out of her home. Gates Police Chief Robert Gates tells WHAM 13 he learned of the daycare controversy after a parent complained about a suspicious injury on their child.
Through the investigation, we learned that there were multiple children, all under the age of 7 years old, that had attended this location that also had similar suspicious injuries.
Gates says the injuries were not life-threatening, and it is important for parents to do their homework before signing their children up for daycare. Casey Rates, by the way, is currently in the Monroe County Jail on $300,000 bail. Summer camp season's just around the corner, and a proposed new law in New York would permit summer camp staff to administer medications. Family Life's Sarah Harnish has that story.
Under current law, camps that do not have a nurse or physician licensed in New York State are unable to provide even common medications like Tylenol, treatments for insect bites, poison ivy remedies, motion sickness medications, or emergency medications for serious allergic reactions. The bill would close those gaps and allow staff over the age of 18 to treat campers. The bill is heading to Governor Hochul's desk, but would take effect 180 days after being signed. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
Thank you, Sarah. A rollover crash involving a logging truck caused a major traffic tie-up in western Pennsylvania Wednesday. Family Life's Brian Query.
A tractor-trailer carrying logs overturned late Wednesday morning along busy Route 8 just north of the Route 422 interchange in Butler Township, Pennsylvania. Emergency crews found logs scattered across across the roadway and a significant diesel fuel spill, prompting a response from the county hazmat team and PennDOT. Route 8 was shut down in the area for several hours while crews cleared debris and addressed the fuel leak. The driver suffered multiple injuries and was taken to Butler Memorial Hospital. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Things are getting a bit unbearable in western New York. There have been several recent bear sightings in the Buffalo suburbs of Hamburg and Orchard Park. Now you can add West Seneca to the list. This resident telling WIVB his neighbor was having her morning coffee when she saw the bear.
I was working on a project and Sharon called me, and she never calls me unless there's something going on. So I picked up the phone and she said, "Did you see the bear?" And I said, "What bear?" She said, "It went right across the lawn."
West Seneca Town Supervisor Gary Dixon.
Police dispatch started receiving calls this morning from neighbors in a number of streets about a bear. So they went out and started looking for it. They got their drone up and they contacted DEC for one of their wildlife management officers.
The DEC says by yesterday afternoon, that bear, a young male weighing about 130 pounds, had wandered off into some nearby woods, hopefully to stay there. We've got sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the Buffalo Sabres and San Jose Sharks have hooked up in a trade just a few days after the conclusion of the NHL season. Buffalo has sent defenseman Michael Kesselring to the Sharks and their 27th pick in next week's draft in exchange for the 20th selection. To baseball, the New York Yankees doubled up the White Sox 10-5 yesterday. Once again, the Bronx Bombers used the long ball to pave the way. Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt, and Jazz Chisholm Jr. all hit home runs. Goldie's was a 3-run shot. Bellinger's a 2-run blast, and Chisholm Jr.'s was of the solo variety. The Mets salvaged their series finale with a 9-1 thumping of the Reds. Nolan McLean struck out 9 over 7 shutout innings, and the offense was provided mostly by Juan Soto, Mark Vientos, and A.J. Ewing. All of them drove in 2 runs apiece. It was a big game for Ryan O'Hearn and the Pirates. O'Hearn went 3 for 5, had a home run and 6 RBIs. He led the Buccos past the Athletics 12-4. The Phillies missed out on sweeping Miami as the Marlins' Kyle Stowers went deep twice and drove in 5. Stowers went 4 for 5, added an RBI double and an RBI single to his 2 long balls, 12-4 the final. And the U.S. Open Golf Championship is underway at Shinnecock Hills on Long Island. The last time the Open played here 8 years ago, nobody finished under par. That is a look at sports.
It's a tough course for sure. Thank you, Randy. Still to come on the Noon Report. What's in the deal? The deal with Iran. Why living together before marriage is a bad idea. And how come there's been so many tornadoes this year?
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Recently, in response to a commentary about UAPs, aliens, and the demonic, several people wrote in about our claim that angels are not made in the image of God, as humans are. Though the Bible does speak of angels, it never states that angels are made in God's image. In fact, there's not biblical reason to think that they do. Genesis 1 plainly emphasizes that humans are made in God's image, repeating the point several times in just 2 verses. The description offers a contrast between humans and everything else that God made. In this very first mention of humanity in Scripture, in fact, humans were created and set apart for the unique and special task of filling and subduing the earth. That task and the title of image bearer are described together. But angels were not given this task, nor were they given the title. They are described as assisting humans in this task, and they clearly were made to serve God as His soldiers and His messengers. In other words, angels and human beings were created for distinct purposes. Human beings have greater dignity than angels, but not because we're more powerful. In fact, we're not, but our value lies elsewhere. Comparatively, at least throughout Scripture, we know far less about angels than we do about humans. Angels appear in Scripture about 300 times, but the details are vague. The safest thing we can assume about angels is that they are intimidating, because they often appear by saying, "Be not afraid." The Bible never portrays angels as being intimidated by human beings. nor as those naked little chubby creatures from pop art. Nor are angels portrayed as mental projections of guilt or conscience, but as specific persons with names and tasks and wills. Angels are also portrayed as curious. In 1 Peter 1, the apostle says that human salvation is something into which angels long to look. Now, many will point to the mental and physical capacities of angels that Scripture describes as suggesting that they also bear God's image as humans do. However, that's based on an idea that the image of God is what we're capable of doing. But that should not be our understanding of what it means to be an image bearer. After all, if our dignity is dependent on our capacities, what happens when those abilities are lost, either by illness or disability or some other circumstance? Now, the consistent theme throughout Scripture is that being made in the image of God is something that human beings are. And as such, we're uniquely the object of God's attention and love, more so than angels, even though we have less abilities than they do. Beyond what we can do, being made in the image of God is who we are. Our value is not earned, nor is it achieved by expression. It's intrinsic, it's endowed. It's not a trait or an ability, thus we cannot lose it, nor can it be taken away. The creation account in Genesis also has been described as offering a kind of temple motif. In it, God places Adam and Eve, his image, at the center of the garden, a place where God and man would commune as one. And that temple theme continues throughout the Old Testament, all the way through Revelation. So in summary, angels serve God, but God came in human form. Christ was incarnate as a human male. Humans make up his bride. All of that is because humans bear God's image. Angels do not. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank you, John. Outside next, it's weather where you live with meteorologist Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life forecast for this afternoon. It will be windy and unsettled with sun, clouds, a couple of scattered showers and thunderstorms. High temps, 70s and low 80s. Winds will be gusting to between 40 and 50 miles an hour in much of the area. Tonight, partly cloudy, low temps, 50s and low 60s. Tomorrow, it's a day with sun and clouds, breezy. There could be a pop-up shower and thunderstorm in the afternoon, less humid. High temps, upper 60s and 70s. Saturday, fair amount of sunshine, breezy, pleasant with high temperatures, upper 60s and 70s. Sunday looks fairly pleasant too.
All right, thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price, and there's a lot to get to Thursday, June 18th, in the French Palace of Versailles. President Trump has personally signed a deal to wind down the war with Iran. The so-called Memorandum of Understanding promises a relief fund for Iran worth hundreds of billions of dollars. ABC's Karen Waugh is in Washington.
Critics say the administration has not been clear about what's actually in the deal. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer accuses the White House of keeping the public in the dark.
This is foreign policy by clown car, except it's dangerous.
And Republican Senator Bill Cassidy called the deal with Iran the worst foreign policy blunder in decades.
Fox's Trey Yinks.
This is a memorandum of understanding. It is not the final deal between the United States and Iran. And really, this should be looked at as an extension of the ceasefire agreement. It's the president giving the Iranians a chance to change their behavior and normalize ties on the international stage. And if they're unwilling to do so, the president says he will resume the bombing campaign.
The deal reopens the Strait of Hormuz and lifts sanctions on Iranian oil exports while providing a reported $300 billion reconstruction fund. The alleged ringleader in Sunday's terror plot at the White House during that UFC Fight Night event is an illegal immigrant. Police say Abraham Alvarez used the name Shepard while organizing the attack. That plot involved flying bomb-rigged drones into buildings and then shooting people as they fled. Thankfully, it never got off the ground. Alvarez came to this country as a child during the Obama administration and received deportation relief through the federal DACA program. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth is demanding NATO allies do more to protect themselves and not rely on the U.S. military.
I'm announcing today a 6-month Department of War review that will examine America's force posture and basing in Europe.
The War Secretary called it shameful that European allies refused American requests to launch planes or ships from their military bases during the war with Iran. President Trump awards the Medal of Honor today to a retired reconnaissance Marine. Major James Capers Jr. led his team through a deadly ambush in South Vietnam in 1967. Injured and bleeding, Capers Troopers got his 9-man team to a helicopter for evacuation after 4 days and nights of fighting. The Medal of Honor is America's highest military honor. That award ceremony today happens at 4 p.m. at the White House. Arthur's been downgraded to a tropical depression, but continues to drench the U.S. Gulf Coast. Parts of Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi could see 1.5 feet or more of rain from the first-named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season. Meanwhile, in the Midwest, more tornadoes broke out overnight in the land of Lincoln. NBC's Maggie Vespa's in tornado-wrecked Illinois.
If this tornado season has seemed especially active, it's because it is. Illinois especially has had more tornado reports by far than any other state in the country in 2026, 190. At this point, that is triple the average for this time of year.
Wow, Maggie Vespa reporting. An 18-year-old passenger in a horse-drawn carriage in New York Central Park has died. He hit his head on the pavement after the horse got spooked and the carriage tipped over. This man witnessed the freak accident.
I saw the horse stumble, and his friend was right next door to him, and then it just collided and it turned into a mess.
The teen passenger fell off the carriage as the horse bolted and crashed into another horse-drawn carriage in Central Park. It was standing room only in Lower Manhattan today as the NBA champion New York Knicks were treated to a ticker tape parade down the Canyon of Heroes. 10,000 uniformed police officers are there to help maintain law and order. Officials are bracing for what could be the largest crowd ever in New York City. It's been 53 years since the Knicks have won the NBA title. You're listening to the Noon Report for Thursday on Family Life.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm your host, Sarah Harnish. With me today, Communio founder and president, J.P. DeGance. We're talking cohabitation before marriage. At Communio, you looked at 40 years of data to see what moves the needle on marital health, and you found that couples who skip cohabitation and premarital sex see a 60 to 80% lower divorce rate. Let's break it down.
Yeah, look, the reality is cohabitation and premarital sex is directly related to higher divorce rates, less marital success. In fact, cohabitation is not only dramatically increases the likelihood that you'll divorce, but actually those who cohabitate for a long period of time, if they break up that cohabitation and then later get married and do everything the right way later, what they find is those marriages have the same divorce rate of second marriages, meaning they're much more likely to end in divorce. Cohabitation appears to have a long-term impact on the marriage skill of commitment, and it diminishes the likelihood of a person committing to anybody, even those they don't cohabitate with in the future.
Can you give me some data? What are some hard numbers that you found through this study?
Yeah, we're seeing upwards of 60% plus higher rates of divorce amongst those who cohabitate before marriage than those who don't. And it goes up praying together as a couple, have a huge impact getting to church regularly as a couple, and then, of course, not cohabitating and not engaging in premarital sex as a couple.
In the Fox News report, they spoke with a priest in Florida who said that 70% of couples that were coming to premarital counseling were already living together. Did you find that's the case in your study, that it was that high?
Yeah, well, if I recall, the priest who shared that said that's been an improvement if you look back over the last decade. And so it's very common. But I can say there's a large minority of Christian couples who are coming and showing up for marriage that are engaging and following the right sequence here. So it's a larger and larger minority, and we hope to see this tip where it becomes the norm to enter marriage the right way.
It would seem that the answer is very simple. Have self-control and wait to live together, even if it costs you more financially, which is the big thing I hear.
If money's an issue, get a roommate. There's different ways that you can share the bills. The reality is when we cohabitate, imagine a rowboat. You're jumping in the boat. Each person has a leg out of the boat. When those two folks are trying to paddle that boat, it's harder to navigate it. the boat's less stable because both people have a foot out and they want to be able to jump out at any given moment. By entering marriage the right way, you're getting in with both feet. You never create the mental expectation that you might jump out of the boat. Both people are going on the adventure together. The boat can move faster, it's easier to navigate, and you can get to where you're going safer.
The other argument I hear for cohabitation is, well, I've got to get to know them to know whether or not I want to spend my lifetime with them. What would you say to that?
Yeah, the reality is the data shows the opposite. Cohabiting contributes to a number of bad norms. You're engaging in a situation, women in particular, they're more likely to be victims of violence. One of the reasons for that is a married guy is more likely to function and behave like a protector, and married women are less likely to engage in more risky behavior than their cohabiting counterparts, right? So there's a number of reasons for that. Wendy Wang has a great piece out in the Washington Post talking about the unique benefits of security for women that come from marriage, that married women are way more likely to live a life of safety in an increasingly hostile world where violent crime is more and more prevalent in a lot of our cities and metro areas.
What can you tell the young person or the older person sitting there who's in a serious relationship on waiting?
Yeah, look, your no today is going to lead to a much, much better yes tomorrow. When we enter the relationship the right way, trust, rely, commit, touch, moving from left to right. I never trust somebody more than I know them. I never rely on somebody more than I trust them. I never commit to somebody more than I rely on them, and I never move to sexual touch until I'm fully committed. The reality is what the world is telling our young people is that they should move quickly to sexual touch. And the fact is there's really powerful brain chemicals that exist that God's given us because when we enter sexual touch, that's intended to be a lifelong partnership. And those brain chemicals create powerful bonding dynamics that cause us to trust and rely on somebody when we don't yet know them and we're not yet committed to them. When our young people say no right now, they're allowing themselves to enter into a human relationship in the way that God designed that's healthy, that doesn't release these powerful brain chemicals of bonding when we're not yet ready to be bonded with that person.
Learn more at communio.org.
All right, great stuff there. Thank you, Sarah. Faith Under Fire comes your way Thursdays during the Noon Report or online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and FamilyLife.org. And finally, at noon, Sunday is not only Father's Day, folks, it's also the first day of summer, and apparently there is some guilt associated with this transition in seasons. Correspondent Bree Tennis.
Psychology Today says it's called sunshine guilt, and it's a nagging anxiety you feel for staying indoors on a beautiful sunny day. They call it JOMO, the joy of missing out, staying in bed to read a book, watch a movie, or just hang out inside. Then there's the pressure of creating the perfect summer with experiences. Psychologists say it's okay to have the summer you want, with or without barbecues, parties, or ice cream, but that sounds good too. I'm Bree Tennis.
Important to note here, there's no wrong way to do summer. Summer's coming this Sunday, and that's our world, the world we live in. Thursday, the 18th of June. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.